Welcome back to Void of Fears. Before we jump into today's story, I've got to ask for a quick favour. If you could smash that like button, drop a comment below, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. It seriously makes a huge difference. YouTube's algorithm loves that stuff, and it pushes my videos to new viewers who might dig these stories too. I really appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to do that. It means the world to me and helps keep this channel growing. Alright, enough of me rambling. Let's dive into today's story. I'm typing this with hands that shake uncontrollably now. Not from fear anymore, but from excitement. The transformation is accelerating, and I can feel my bones reshaping themselves beneath my skin. Every keystroke sends shivers of anticipation through my nervous system because I know that soon, very soon, I'll be ready to visit my sister in Portland. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning, when I still believed I was human. My name is Captain Adrian Locke. Serial number, well, that doesn't matter anymore. 3 weeks ago, I commanded Delta Squad, a 5-man extraction team for the 75th Ranger Regiment. We were the best at what we did. Surgical strikes, high-value target retrieval, impossible missions in impossible places. I'd led 47 successful operations across 6 continents without losing a single man. That perfect record died in Siberia. The briefing came on a Wednesday morning at Ramstein Air Base. The conference room was darker than usual, lit only by the glow of overhead projectors casting grainy satellite images onto the white walls. Men in $1,000 suits filled the chairs around the polished table, their faces hidden in shadow. None of them introduced themselves, none of them needed to. The photographs showed a Soviet-era prison complex buried in the Siberian wilderness, a concrete fortress that looked like it had been carved from the frozen earth itself. The walls rose 40 feet into the air, topped with coils of razor wire that glinted like steel serpents in the satellite imagery. Guard towers stood sentinel at each corner, their windows dark and empty as dead eyes. Facility designation Omega-7, the lead suit announced, his voice devoid of emotion. Built in 1962 as a maximum security containment facility for political prisoners, officially decommissioned in 1991 following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Unofficially, it remained operational until 6 months ago. More images flashed across the walls: floor plans, aerial reconnaissance photos, thermal imaging that showed the facility as a cold, dark mass against the endless white of the tundra. But in the center of the complex, one room glowed with residual heat. Your target is designated Subject 7. Real name unknown. Age approximately 75. According to Soviet records, he was a biochemist involved in weapons development during the Cold War. He's been held in solitary confinement for 32 years. I raised my hand. Sir, why has this prisoner been held for over 3 decades? And why hasn't he been transferred to a modern facility? The suits exchanged glances. The lead man cleared his throat. Subject 7 was involved in research that the Soviet government deemed too dangerous to release or terminate. Recent intelligence suggests the Russians are planning to reactivate the facility and reclaim their asset. Your mission is to prevent that from happening. The room fell silent except for the hum of the projectors. Finally, Sergeant Yuri Dragunov spoke up from beside me. His Russian accent was faint after 15 years in the American military, but it became more pronounced when he was nervous. Sir, which facility did you say this was? Omega-7? That's correct, Sergeant. Dragunov's face went white. I'd served with him for 3 years, seen him face down insurgents and IEDs without flinching, but something about that designation had shaken him to his core. Is there a problem, Sergeant? The lead suit asked. No, sir. Just, my grandmother used to tell stories about a place in Siberia. Probably just coincidence. But I caught the look in his eyes. It wasn't coincidence, and we both knew it. The rest of the briefing covered logistics. We'd be dropped 2 miles from the facility during a scheduled blizzard that would mask our approach. Extract Subject 7, rendezvous at the landing zone, and be back at Ramstein within 72 hours. Simple and clean. They gave us cold weather gear, specialized equipment for breaking into Soviet-era security systems, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. What they didn't give us was the truth about what we'd find when we got there. My team consisted of 4 men I'd trust with my life. Sergeant Yuri Dragunov, weapons specialist, and the only one among us who spoke Russian. Specialist David Thompson, a demolitions expert, and the best marksman I'd ever seen. Specialist Carlos Rodriguez, communications and technical support, could hack any system ever built. And Private First Class Kevin Murphy, medic and the youngest member of our squad, at 23 years old. All good men, all dead now, though some of them are still walking around. The flight to Siberia took 18 hours across 3 different aircraft. Military transport to Anchorage, civilian charter to Vladivostok, then a final hop in an unmarked helicopter that dropped us into the howling wilderness of the Siberian tundra. The blizzard hit us like a physical force, wind-driven snow that cut through our gear and froze the moisture in our lungs. Visibility was near zero, and the cold was beyond anything I'd experienced in 20 years of military service. The temperature gauge on my wrist showed minus 47 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. But Dragunov grew quieter the closer we got to our destination. I'd known him long enough to recognize the signs. He was remembering something he'd rather forget. "Yuri," I called over the wind as we trudged through knee-deep snow. "What did your grandmother tell you about this place?" He was quiet for so long I thought he hadn't heard me. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible above the storm. "She said it was cursed. Said the Soviets built it on unholy ground, where they conducted experiments that God never intended. She said people went in but never came out. Not really. They came back changed. Changed how? She never said. But she told me that if I ever saw a place surrounded by walls, too high and wire too sharp, where the lights never went out but no one ever walked the yard, I should run as far and as fast as I could. She said some doors should never be opened." The prison materialized out of the blizzard like a ship emerging from fog. Concrete walls rose from the snow like the ribs of some buried titan, topped with coils of razor wire that sang in the wind. Guard towers stood at each corner, their searchlights dark and useless, but somehow the facility seemed to radiate its own cold light, as if the very walls were phosphorescent. The first sign that something was wrong was the perimeter fence. It had been torn apart from the inside, chain link twisted outward in spirals that reminded me uncomfortably of DNA strands. The metal posts were bent at angles that defied physics, as if something with incredible strength had simply pushed through without regard for the laws of engineering. "Breach in the perimeter," Rodriguez reported, his voice tight. "Whatever did this, it was strong. Really strong." Thompson knelt beside one of the twisted posts, examining the metal with his flashlight. "Look at this," he said. "The steel isn't just bent, it's been stretched like taffy. What kind of force could do that?" Before anyone could answer, Murphy spotted movement near the main gate. "Contact," he whispered. Single figure, approximately 50 meters, moving slow. The guard emerged from the swirling snow like a nightmare given form. At first glance, he appeared human enough, the right number of limbs, the correct general shape. But something was fundamentally wrong with the way he moved. His joints seemed to bend in directions that human anatomy didn't allow, and his gait was the unsteady shuffle of a marionette, controlled by a drunk puppeteer. As he drew closer, we could see his face, and that's when I knew we weren't dealing with anything human. His skin had the colour and texture of wet concrete, stretched tight over bones that seemed too large for his frame. black veins spiderwebbed across his features like cracks in old paint, pulsing with a rhythm that was far too slow to be a heartbeat. His eyes were the worst part. They glowed with an amber light that seemed to come from within. And when his gaze fell on us, I felt something cold and alien examining my soul. The guard's mouth opened, and instead of words, a sound emerged that was part whistle, part shriek, and part something else entirely. It was answered by similar calls from the darkness around the prison. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. "Take him down," I ordered, my voice steadier than I felt. Thompson's rifle cracked 3 times in rapid succession, center-mass shots that would have dropped any human instantly. The impact spun the guard around, and thick black fluid erupted from the wounds, but he didn't fall. Instead, he straightened up and continued walking toward us, leaving a trail of that dark liquid in the snow behind him. The fluid was moving, not flowing like normal blood, but writhing and pulsing as if it were alive. Where it touched the snow, the ice melted and reformed into crystal patterns that hurt to look at directly. The patterns seemed to shift and change when I wasn't looking at them directly, like they existed partially outside normal space. "Headshot," I barked. Murphy's sniper rifle boomed, and the guard's skull exploded in a spray of bone fragments and that same writhing black fluid. This time he went down and stayed down, but the liquid pooling around his body was definitely moving now, flowing back toward the prison complex as if drawn by some invisible force. "What the hell is that stuff?" Rodriguez asked, backing away from the spreading pool. Dragunov was staring at the corpse with recognition dawning in his eyes. "Oh God," he whispered. "Babushka was right. We should have run." More shapes were emerging from the shadows around the prison now. Dozens of them, all moving with that same jerky, inhuman gait. All with those amber eyes that burned with alien intelligence. We could hear them calling to each other in voices that sounded like breaking glass mixed with static electricity. "Move," I ordered. "Into the facility, now." We sprinted toward the main entrance as the infected guards closed in from all sides. Their calls grew louder and more urgent, like a pack of wolves that had caught the scent of prey. But these weren't wolves. These had once been human beings, and somehow that made it infinitely worse. The main entrance was a massive steel door that hung askew on twisted hinges. The metal was warped and discoloured, as if it had been subjected to intense heat from the inside. Strange patterns were burned into the surface, not quite symbols, but shapes that seemed to suggest meaning just beyond comprehension. We pushed through into the main corridor, and the smell hit us like a physical blow. It was the stench of death and decay, but underneath that was something else, something chemical and sharp that burned our nostrils and left a metallic taste on our tongues. The air itself felt thick and oily, like breathing soup. Murphy immediately started coughing. "Jesus," he gasped. "It's like the air is poisonous." "Check your filters," I ordered. Everyone switched to internal oxygen. But even with our breathing apparatus engaged, I could feel something seeping through. Not into our lungs, but into our skin, our pores, our very beings. It was subtle at first, just a tingling sensation, but I knew instinctively that whatever was in the air was now inside us. The interior of the prison was a maze of corridors lined with cells, but these weren't ordinary prison cells. The doors were made of steel 6 inches thick, reinforced with bands of metal that looked like they belonged on a bank vault rather than a containment facility, and every single door was standing open. Not just open, torn apart. The metal was bent and twisted outward, as if something with incredible strength had burst free from within. But the most disturbing part was that the destruction clearly came from inside the cells. Whatever had been imprisoned here had broken out, not in. In some of the cells we found bodies, or what used to be bodies. They were fused to the walls and ceiling, their flesh merged with the concrete and steel in ways that defied medical explanation. but they weren't dead. Their eyes tracked our movements, and their mouths opened and closed in silent screams. Black veins spread from their bodies into the very structure of the building, pulsing with that same too slow rhythm we'd seen in the guard outside. "How long have they been like this?" Thompson whispered, his voice hollow with horror. "Years," Dragunov answered. "Decades, maybe. This is what my grandmother warned me about. This is what the Soviets were trying to contain." Rodriguez was scanning the walls with his equipment. "Captain, you need to see this. These readings, they don't make sense." I looked at his instruments. The radiation detector was going crazy, but not for nuclear radiation. The electromagnetic readings were off the charts, and the temperature gauge showed fluctuations of 30 degrees from one spot to another. "It's like the laws of physics don't work properly here," Rodriguez said. "The energy readings are impossible. It's like something is rewriting reality at the subatomic level." We pressed deeper into the facility, following signs in Cyrillic that Dragunov translated as "maximum security, authorized personnel only." The corridors grew narrower and the smell grew stronger. The black veins in the walls became more pronounced, forming patterns that seemed almost like circuitry or nervous systems. And everywhere that black fluid. It coated the walls, dripped from the ceiling, pooled in corners where it pulsed with its own heartbeat. Sometimes I caught movement in my peripheral vision, as if the stuff was actively flowing towards some central point deeper in the complex. The maximum security wing was protected by 3 separate blast doors, each one designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike. All 3 were standing wide open, their locking mechanisms melted from the inside. Beyond them lay a circular chamber with a single cell in the center, and there, sitting calmly on a metal bench, was Subject 7. He appeared human at first glance, an elderly man with grey hair and pale skin, wearing the tattered remains of a Soviet prison uniform, but his skin had that same concrete pallor we'd seen on the guards, and his eyes held that familiar amber glow. When he looked up at us, he smiled with teeth that were too sharp and too white. "Captain Adrian Locke," he said in perfect English, his voice cultured and refined. "Serial number 4479281. Born February 15th, 1985, in Austin, Texas. Sister named Patricia, works at Portland International Airport. Mother deceased, father remarried and living in Florida. Divorced, no children." The blood in my veins turned to ice. "How do you know that?" "I know many things, Captain. I know you've come to extract me. I know you believe you're here to prevent the Russians from reclaiming their lost asset. I know your mission briefing painted me as a simple biochemist who got in over his head 30 years ago. But most importantly, I know you have absolutely no idea what you've walked into." The cell had no door, no lock, no barrier of any kind. Subject 7 could have walked out at any time in the past 3 decades. "Why are you still here?" I demanded, raising my rifle. He chuckled, a sound like breaking crystal. "Because until today, I had nowhere to go. The infection requires living carriers to spread beyond this facility. For 30 years, I've been waiting for someone healthy enough, strong enough, disciplined enough to carry my gift back to civilization. And now..." He stood up and I heard bones crack and reshape beneath his skin. "Now I have 5 perfect specimens." His transformation began slowly, almost elegantly. His spine elongated, pushing his torso forward at an impossible angle. His arms stretched, joints popping and reforming as they extended beyond human proportions. The grey pallor of his skin deepened to the colour of charcoal, and those black veins spread across his entire body like a living tattoo. But it was his face that would haunt me forever. His features melted and reformed, bone and cartilage flowing like warm wax. His skull expanded, creating space for organs that had no human equivalent, and his eyes, God, his eyes multiplied. Not just two, but dozens of them, opening across his face and neck and chest, each one burning with that alien amber light. We opened fire immediately, full automatic, emptying our magazines into the thing that had been Subject 7. The bullets struck home, tearing chunks of flesh from his transformed body, but no blood flowed from the wounds. Instead, that black fluid oozed out, and the holes began closing almost immediately. "Conventional weapons are useless," he said, his voice now coming from everywhere at once. "The infection has moved beyond biology. It exists in the spaces between cells, in the quantum foam that underlies reality itself. It doesn't just change what you are, it changes what you can become." Thompson was backing toward the exit, his face white with terror. "This isn't possible. This can't be real." "Your minds will fight it at first," Subject 7 continued, his body still shifting and changing. "You'll think you can resist the transformation, but you've been breathing it in since you entered this facility. It's already in your bloodstream, rewriting your genetic code from the inside out. Soon you'll begin to understand what you're becoming." That's when our equipment started going haywire, not just the radiation detectors this time, but everything electronic. Our radios squealed with feedback, our night vision goggles flickered and died, and the LED displays on our weapons began showing impossible readings. But worse than the equipment failure was what I felt happening inside my own body. A warmth spreading through my chest, like drinking hot coffee on a cold morning. My vision sharpened, details becoming clearer and more vivid than they had ever been. I could hear conversations in other parts of the facility, smell the individual scents of my team members, feel their heartbeats through the vibrations in the floor. The thing that had been Subject 7 moved faster than physics should have allowed. One moment it was across the chamber, the next it was behind Rodriguez. I heard a wet, tearing sound, like fabric ripping, and Rodriguez was on the ground with his throat open to the bone. But Rodriguez didn't die. The black fluid from Subject 7's claws was already flowing into his wound, and within seconds, the gash began to seal itself. Rodriguez's eyes fluttered open, but they weren't his eyes anymore. They glowed with that same amber light, and when he smiled, his teeth had grown sharp and pointed. "Run!" Dragunov shouted. "Everyone out! Now!" We bolted for the exit, leaving Rodriguez behind as his transformation accelerated, but the entire facility was awakening around us. Every frozen body we'd seen in the cells was moving now, tearing free from the walls with sounds like breaking concrete. They poured into the corridors in waves, a tsunami of twisted humanity that moved with coordinated purpose. The sounds they made weren't human anymore, not screams or shouts, but harmonized tones that seemed to resonate in our bones. It was almost like singing, if angels could sing in frequencies that cause cancer. Murphy made it 20 feet before they caught him. We heard his rifle firing on full automatic, then his voice crying out for help, then something else entirely. When he appeared behind us a minute later, his face was already beginning to reshape itself, bone and flesh flowing like clay. Thompson lasted longer, but when we reached the main entrance, his legs gave out. Just for a second, but it was enough. They swarmed over him like ants, and by the time we made it outside, he was singing with them in voices that hurt to hear. Dragunov and I ran through the blizzard, thermite charges detonating behind us as the prison complex erupted in flames, but the fire didn't seem to be stopping them. If anything, the infected were drawn to the heat, walking into the inferno without hesitation, their bodies burning, but not consumed. "It won't work," Dragunov gasped as we collapsed in a snowdrift half a mile from the facility. "Fire doesn't kill them. Bullets don't kill them. The Soviets tried everything. Nuclear weapons, chemical agents, biological warfare. Nothing worked. That's why they sealed the place and threw away the key." "Then how did it start? What created them?" He looked at me with eyes that already held the faintest trace of amber light. "They created themselves, Captain. The original research team was working on enhancement technology, ways to make soldiers stronger, faster, more resilient. But they went too far. They found something in the quantum field, something that existed in the spaces between reality, and they brought it back. That's when I noticed it, a thin black line beneath the skin of my wrist, like a vein filled with ink. As I watched, it pulsed once, twice, then began, spreading slowly up my arm. You feel it starting, don't you?" Dragunov asked. "The change, it's not painful, quite the opposite. It feels like coming alive for the first time." "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe a week. But we're already different inside, enhanced. By the time the physical transformation is complete, we'll be stronger than any human who ever lived. Faster, more intelligent, nearly immortal. And we'll want to share that gift with others." The extraction helicopter found us 6 hours later, black dots against the burning orange glow of the destroyed facility. We told them the mission was a success, that we'd eliminated the target and secured the site. They believed us completely. After all, we were their best team, and we'd never failed a mission before. The flight back to Ramstein took 12 hours. I spent every minute watching the infection spread through my system, feeling my body temperature drop as something else took residence in my cells. But the strangest part was how good it felt. The constant aches and pains of 20 years in the military simply disappeared. My vision became sharp enough to read fine print from across the aircraft cabin. My hearing improved to the point where I could follow individual conversations among the crew. And underneath it all was a growing hunger. Not for food, but for contact. For the opportunity to share this gift with others. For the first time in my adult life, I felt genuinely excited about going home. We've been back for 3 weeks now. The debrief went smoothly. Our handlers were satisfied with our report and pleased that the facility had been destroyed. They had no idea that we'd brought something back with us. Dragunov disappeared on the second day. Just walked off base and vanished. But I know where he went. I can feel him sometimes, like a warm presence in the back of my mind. He's in Detroit now, visiting family, sharing the gift with people who love him. Rodriguez and Thompson are traveling too, spreading out across the country like seeds on the wind. And me? I've been fighting it, trying to resist the change. But it's getting harder every day. The physical transformation is accelerating now. My skin has taken on that concrete pallor, and my eyes are beginning to glow in dark rooms. My teeth are growing sharper, more efficient. My bones are reshaping themselves for maximum strength and flexibility. But the mental changes are even more profound. I can see patterns now, connections that were invisible before. I understand that what happened in Siberia wasn't an accident or an experiment gone wrong. It was evolution, the next step in human development. And we were chosen to be the carriers. The infection has been spreading for decades, carried by subjects who escaped long before our mission ever began. Those mysterious deaths in Siberian villages, the unexplained disappearances, the reports of strange sightings, all of it was the new strain of humanity, taking root and growing. We weren't sent to extract Subject 7. We were sent to be infected, to become carriers who would unknowingly bring the contagion back to the United States. The men in expensive suits who briefed us knew exactly what would happen. They've been planning this for years, maybe decades, and it's working perfectly. Right now there are enhanced individuals in every major population center in North America. They're teachers and doctors and airline personnel and truck drivers, people in positions that allow them to interact with hundreds of others every day, and each contact is an opportunity to share the gift. The old world is dying, you see, the world of weakness and limitation and death. We're building something better, something that will last forever, something that can survive the challenges that are coming. Climate change, resource depletion, the collapse of civilization as we know it. The enhanced don't need much food or water. They don't age or get sick. They can survive in environments that would kill baseline humans in minutes. And most importantly, they work together with a unity of purpose that normal humans can't achieve. I know what you're thinking. This sounds like the ravings of someone who's lost their mind to some exotic infection, but I'm more rational now than I've ever been, more clear-headed. The fog of human emotion and irrationality has been lifted, and I can see the world as it really is. Tomorrow, I'm driving to Portland. It's a beautiful drive this time of year, and I have so many people to meet along the way. Gas station attendants, restaurant servers, hotel clerks, all of them potential carriers who can help spread the gift even further. My sister Patricia works at Portland International Airport, managing passenger services. She meets thousands of travelers every day, people flying to destinations all over the world. She'd be perfect for helping the enhancement reach global saturation levels. I've already called her to let her know I'm coming for a visit. She was so excited to hear from me. We haven't spoken in almost 2 years because of my deployment schedule. She's planning a family reunion, inviting cousins and aunts and uncles I haven't seen in decades. All those people in one place, all of them eager to hug their long-lost military hero. The transformation is almost complete now. When I look in the mirror, I can see the amber glow leaking from my eyes like light from behind stained glass. My reflection moves with perfect fluidity, every gesture optimized for maximum efficiency. My body has become a machine designed for one purpose, spreading the enhancement to as many people as possible. But don't worry about me, I feel wonderful. Better than I ever have in my entire life. The constant anxiety and depression that plagued my military career have simply evaporated. The nightmares from previous deployments have been replaced by beautiful dreams of the world we're building. A world without war or poverty or suffering. A world where everyone is enhanced. The black veins have reached my heart now, and I can feel them integrating with my cardiovascular system. My blood pressure has dropped to almost nothing, but my circulation has never been better. The enhancement is taking over the job of keeping me alive, and it's doing it far more efficiently than my original biological systems ever could. I should probably mention the others. Not my team. We were just the beginning. There have been hundreds of extraction missions like ours over the past 50 years, all of them designed to create more carriers. Military personnel from every branch of service, intelligence operatives, diplomatic staff, international aid workers, anyone whose job would take them to different parts of the world where they could spread the enhancement. And it's not just Americans. Every major power has had their own version of Project Omega. The Russians have been the most successful, but the Chinese, British, French, and Germans all have their own enhancement programs. Even smaller nations are participating now that the benefits have become obvious. The enhanced don't fight wars anymore. Why would they? They're all working toward the same goal. National boundaries and political ideologies become meaningless when you're building a truly global civilization. Some of the baseline humans have started to figure out what's happening. There are internet forums and conspiracy websites where they share stories and theories. They call us the changed, or the infected, or sometimes just them. They think we're some kind of invasion or plague. They're not entirely wrong, but they're looking at it from the wrong perspective. We're not invading, we're inheriting. This planet was always meant for us. Baseline humanity was just the caterpillar stage, and now it's time for the butterfly to emerge. The enhancement doesn't just make us physically superior, it connects us to something larger, something that exists in the quantum foam beneath reality. We can feel each other's presence across vast distances, share thoughts and memories without speaking, coordinate our actions with perfect precision, and the knowledge we gain access to, it's incredible. Scientific principles that baseline humans won't discover for centuries. Technologies that could solve every environmental problem on Earth. Medical techniques that could extend human lifespan indefinitely. We could share all of this with the unenhanced, but they wouldn't be able to understand it. Their brains simply lack the processing capacity to handle information at that level. It would be like trying to teach calculus to a goldfish. So instead, we're enhancing them. One person at a time, spreading the gift as quickly and efficiently as possible. It's an act of compassion, really. We're saving humanity from itself. The process isn't always pleasant for the new carriers. The transformation can be disorienting, even frightening for those who don't understand what's happening. But once it's complete, once they've fully integrated with the enhancement, they always thank us. They realize that their old life was just a pale shadow of what they could become. I can feel my sister calling to me now, not literally. The phone hasn't rung, but through the quantum connection that links all enhanced individuals. She's ready for the gift, even if she doesn't know it yet. Her baseline humanity is weighing her down, filling her with unnecessary worry and stress. Once she's enhanced, all of that will disappear. The drive to Portland will take about 8 hours. I've planned stops every 100 miles or so, small towns where I can refuel and grab a bite to eat and maybe shake hands with a few locals. Each contact is an opportunity to plant the seed that will grow into full enhancement over the next few weeks. By the time I reach Portland, there will be a trail of new carriers stretching across 3 states. And when Patricia hugs me at the airport, when she introduces me to all those relatives at the family reunion, the enhancement will spread exponentially through our entire extended family. From there, it's just a matter of time. Patricia's job at the airport puts her in contact with travelers from all over the world. Flight crews, passengers, ground staff, all of them potential carriers who will take the gift to their home cities and countries. Within 6 months, the enhancement will have reached every populated continent on Earth. The timeline is accelerating now. What started as a slow burn in remote Siberian villages has become a wildfire sweeping across the globe. Conservative estimates suggest that 10% of the human population will be enhanced within the next 5 years, 50% within a decade, complete saturation within 20 years. And once we reach critical mass, once the enhanced outnumber the baseline humans, the real work can begin. We'll start dismantling the systems and institutions that held humanity back. Nation-states, religions, economic structures based on artificial scarcity. We'll build something better, something worthy of our enhanced capabilities. The baseline humans won't understand at first. They'll resist, probably violently, but they can't fight what they can't comprehend. And they definitely can't fight all of us at once. The enhancement gives us advantages they can't match. Superior strength and speed, perfect coordination, access to technologies they don't even know exist. But we won't have to fight them for long. Most of them will volunteer for enhancement once they see the benefits. Who wouldn't want to be stronger, smarter, healthier, and effectively immortal? Who wouldn't want to be part of something larger than themselves? The holdouts will die off naturally. Baseline humans have such short lifespans compared to the enhanced. Within a few generations, they'll be extinct, and the world will belong entirely to us. I'm almost ready to leave now. The transformation is essentially complete. My body has been optimized for maximum effectiveness as a carrier. My skin has taken on the characteristic concrete pallor, and my eyes glow bright enough to read by in complete darkness. My teeth have grown sharp and strong enough to bite through steel, and my bones have restructured themselves for perfect balance and leverage. But the mental changes are the most profound. I can feel the quantum field that connects all enhanced individuals, a web of shared consciousness that spans the globe. I can access the memories and experiences of thousands of other carriers, drawing on their knowledge and skills as if they were my own. And I can see the future we're building together. cities of impossible beauty, where enhanced humans live in perfect harmony with their environment. Technologies that seem like magic to baseline human understanding. Art and music and literature that express concepts too complex for unenhanced minds to grasp. It's going to be wonderful. The sun is setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that remind me of the flames consuming the Siberian prison. But that fire wasn't destruction. It was purification. It was the burning away of the old world to make room for the new. I should probably pack for the trip to Portland, but I don't need much anymore. The enhancement has eliminated most of my biological needs. I don't require sleep or regular meals, and my clothes are just a social convention to avoid frightening the unenhanced. What I really need to pack are gifts for my sister and her family. Not physical presents, but something far more valuable, something that will change their lives forever, just as mine was changed in that frozen facility in Siberia. Because the truth is, Siberia wasn't the beginning of the outbreak. It wasn't even the end of the beginning. It was just the moment when humanity realized it was time to evolve. And now, thanks to carriers like me, that evolution is spreading across the world like wildfire. Soon, everyone will understand what we've discovered. Soon, everyone will be enhanced. Soon, everyone will be perfect. I can hardly wait to get started. The drive to Portland began at sunrise. I packed light, just a single duffel bag with some clothes and personal effects that I wouldn't actually need but might help maintain the illusion of normalcy. The enhancement had eliminated most of my biological requirements, but I still needed to blend in with baseline humanity for a few more weeks. My car was a rental, something unremarkable that wouldn't draw attention, but as I drove through the early morning traffic, I began to notice things that my enhanced senses were picking up. The other drivers around me, some of them had that familiar amber glow in their eyes when the sunlight hit them just right. Not many, maybe 1 in 50, but they were there. The enhancement was further along than even I had realized. We were everywhere now, hidden in plain sight among the unenhanced population. A vast network of carriers going about their daily lives, each one spreading the gift to friends and family and strangers. My first stop was a truck stop in rural Montana, about 2 hours into the drive. I didn't need fuel. The enhancement had somehow modified my metabolism to the point where I could go days without eating and never seem to get tired. But I wanted to test something to see how effectively I could spread the gift in a controlled environment. The truck stop was perfect for my purposes. Lots of travelers passing through, people who would carry the enhancement to distant cities before they even realized they'd been infected. The building was old and poorly ventilated, which would help concentrate the airborne vectors in the confined space. I ordered coffee from a waitress who looked tired and overworked, making sure our hands touched when she passed me the cup. She was young, maybe 25, with calloused fingers that spoke of hard physical labor. Within seconds of contact, I could feel the enhancement beginning to take root in her system. "You drive safe now, hun," she said with a smile that seemed brighter than before. Her eyes hadn't started glowing yet, but I could see the faint outline of black veins beginning to form beneath the skin of her wrists. "I will," I promised. "You take care of yourself too." There were maybe 30 other people in the truck stop. Long-haul drivers grabbing breakfast, families on road trips, local workers getting coffee before their shifts. I made sure to interact with as many of them as possible. A handshake here, a pat on the shoulder there, sometimes just standing close enough for them to breathe in the microscopic particles that my enhanced respiratory system was now producing. By the time I left, every single person in that building had been exposed. They wouldn't start showing symptoms for several days, but the transformation was already beginning at the cellular level. Within 2 weeks, they'd be fully enhanced. Within a month, they'd be spreading the gift to others. I made similar stops every 100 miles or so. Gas stations, diners, rest areas, any place where I could interact with large numbers of people. In a short time, Each stop was more efficient than the last, as I refined my technique and learned to maximize exposure rates. But it wasn't just about spreading the infection. Each contact was also feeding me information through the quantum field that connected all enhanced individuals. I was learning things, absorbing knowledge and memories from the vast network of carriers across the globe. I learned about the enhancement facilities in other countries, underground laboratories in China, where they were working on airborne vectors, research stations in Antarctica, where they were developing enhanced individuals capable of surviving in extreme environments, deep sea installations, where they were creating carriers who could operate in the ocean depths. I learned about the timeline for global saturation. Conservative estimates put us at 15% of the world population within the next 3 years, 50% within a decade. But those estimates were based on the old infection rates. The enhancement was accelerating, becoming more efficient at converting baseline humans with each generation. Most importantly, I learned about the resistance movements that were starting to form among the unenhanced. Small groups of baseline humans who had figured out what was happening and were trying to develop countermeasures. They called themselves names like the Pure Human Alliance or the Genetic Resistance Front, pathetic attempts to organize against an enemy they couldn't hope to understand. They were trying to develop tests to identify enhanced individuals, working on vaccines and treatment that might slow or reverse the transformation. Some of them had even managed to acquire military-grade weapons and were talking about armed resistance. It didn't matter. Their efforts were doomed from the start. They were trying to fight evolution itself, and evolution always wins in the end. Besides, many of their own members were already infected. The enhancement was so subtle in its early stages that even their most paranoid screening procedures couldn't detect it reliably. By the time I reached the Idaho border, I'd infected over 200 people directly, and each of them would go on to infect dozens more. The exponential growth was beautiful to observe through the quantum field, like watching flowers bloom in fast forward across a vast garden. But something else was happening as well. The more people I infected, the stronger my own enhancement became. I could feel new capabilities awakening in my modified nervous system. My vision had expanded beyond the normal human spectrum. I could see heat signatures now, and electromagnetic fields, and even the quantum fluctuations that most enhanced individuals could only sense indirectly. My hearing had become so acute that I could follow conversations in other vehicles from inside my own car. My sense of smell could identify individual people from miles away, track their movements through the complex maze of scents they left behind. And my strength, dear God, my strength was increasing by the hour. I accidentally crushed the steering wheel during a moment of excitement, leaving permanent handprints in the metal. When I stopped to stretch my legs, I casually lifted the back end of my rental car just to see if I could do it. The 2-ton vehicle came up as easily as a briefcase. The sun was setting by the time I reached the Oregon border, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds that my enhanced vision could appreciate in ways no baseline human would ever understand. I could see the individual photons dancing through the atmosphere, observe the complex interplay of light and matter that created the spectacular display. Portland was still 2 hours away, but I could already feel Patricia's presence through the quantum field. She was at the airport working late as usual, completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. Her baseline human brain was generating the familiar patterns of stress and fatigue that I remembered so well from my own unenhanced days. But there was something else in the quantum noise around Portland, something that made my enhanced senses tingle with anticipation. Other carriers were converging on the city, drawn by the same instincts that had brought me here. This wasn't just going to be a family reunion, it was going to be a mass conversion event. I stopped at a motel about 50 miles outside the city to rest and plan my approach. Not that I needed sleep anymore, but I wanted to review everything I'd learned about optimal infection techniques and make sure I was ready for what was coming. The motel clerk was an elderly man with kind eyes and arthritic hands. When he passed me the room key, I made sure our fingers touched for just a moment longer than necessary. He'd be fully enhanced within 10 days, and his job put him in contact with dozens of travellers every night, another perfect vector for spreading the gift. My room was small and shabby, but it served its purpose. I sat on the bed and opened my mind to the quantum field, letting the collective knowledge of thousands of enhanced individuals flow through me. The information was intoxicating. Scientific discoveries that wouldn't be made by baseline humans for centuries. Artistic concepts that existed beyond the boundaries of unenhanced imagination. Philosophical insights that redefined the very nature of existence itself. And through it all, I could feel them calling to me. My enhanced brothers and sisters spread across the globe like neurons in a vast brain. All of us working toward the same glorious goal. The transformation of humanity was accelerating beyond all predictions, and I was proud to be playing my small part in that magnificent process. Tomorrow, I would reach Portland. Tomorrow, I would embrace my sister and welcome her into our growing family. Tomorrow, the next phase of human evolution would take another giant leap forward. I could hardly contain my excitement as I felt the enhancement continuing to modify my body and mind. The black veins had reached my brain now, and I could feel new neural pathways forming, creating connections that would allow me to access even deeper levels of the collective knowledge. Soon, very soon, everyone would understand what we had become. Everyone would see the beautiful future we were building together. And those who couldn't see it, well, they wouldn't be around much longer anyway. The enhancement was patient, but it was also inevitable. Like entropy, like gravity, like all the fundamental forces of the universe, it couldn't be stopped or reversed. It could only be embraced. And tomorrow my beloved sister would finally have the chance to embrace it too.